Welcome to the Cyber Rants Podcast, where we're all about sharing the forbidden secrets and slightly embellished truths about corporate cybersecurity programs. We're ranting, we're raving, and we're telling you the stuff that nobody talks about on their fancy website and trade show giveaways, all to protect you from cybersecurity criminals. And now, here's your hosts, Mike Rotondo, Zach Fuller, and Lauro Chavez.
Hello and welcome to the Cyber Rants Podcast. This is your co-host, Zach Fuller, joined by Mike Rotondo and Lauro Chavez. Today we are going to kick it off in the usual fashion. A lot of stuff going on in the news for the past, couple months, really. Basically, very, very critical times, some interesting stuff happening. Mike, why don't you dive right into it?
Right on, Zach. Thank you. Welcome to the podcast. I am going to kick off the news, and hopefully, I don't think I have any SolarWinds headlines. So let's keep our fingers crossed. But I do have Microsoft headlines. Windows desktop servers now used to amplify DDoS attacks. Yep. We got another problem with Microsoft. RDP enabled on UDP 3389 has an amplification ratio of 85.9 to 1. It's just being used by ransomware all over the place, and it's a big problem. A password stolen via a phishing campaign available through Google search. The Linux server hosted on Microsoft Azure was hacked, and they are now delivering out passwords. So it's all good. Dreambus freakout botnets pose new threat to Linux systems. I just like saying Dreambus freakout botnets, but there's another malware out there on Linux. So if you believe you got Linux, you're not safe. Hackers hijacked cloud accounts of high-tech and aviation firms hidden systems for years. You know, we've talked about the cloud before and the security of the cloud before. It's something you definitely have to consider, that you have to look at the security of the cloud. It doesn't mean you're safe just because you're in the cloud. So anyway, these people hacked in, and they were in there for years, literally just stealing data. Fraudsters are using Google Forms to evade email filters. Yet another way around mail is manipulating Google Forms. Another ransomware now uses DDoS attacks to force victims to pay. The new methodology from Suncrypt and RagnarLocker is to, if you don't pay, we're going to DDoS you. New wormable Android malware spreading through WhatsApp. I know a lot of people think WhatsApp is a great tool, that it's available, that it's easy to use, and it's pretty secure, but we got malware spreading through it, so be careful. North Korea linked campaign target security experts via social media. This is the second time I've heard about this week, and I know, Laura, you brought this up also. The North Koreans are attacking security experts. We also got an email, I think it was from Sonic Wall or one of those or Red Eye, that talked about how Google's already been hit up on this stuff. So be careful out there. Be careful who you talk to. Targeted phishing attacks strike high-ranking company executives. Yep, the guy in the corner office is your worst enemy when it comes to security because they're being attacked and they're not paying attention to the phishing training necessarily, so be careful. DDoS attackers exploit vulnerable Microsoft RDP servers. This kind of dovetails off the one I said earlier. Again, this is becoming a big deal. New attack could let remote attackers target devices on internal networks. So this is using NAT slipstreaming, and we always think that, it's on the internal network, so it has some compensating controls in place. I'm figuring out a way around it. CVE 2020-16043 and CVE 2021-23961 are the exploits. DDoS attacks surged in 2020 due to COVID-19, as if 2020 wasn't bad enough already. We have this new DDoS continuation. Dovetailing off what we were talking about, high-level officials, phishing scheme shows CEOs may be most valuable asset and greatest vulnerability. Make your CEOs take the training. And that's all the headlines I got.
If they don't want to take the training, make them take it.
Yep.
I, for one, am really tired of listening to the executives give excuses as to why they can't make time for the awareness training or the phishing training that's coming out automated. Yeah, I'm talking to you out there. You're listening to this.
I think you got to play to their ego and tell them, you are so important, that it's so valuable that you get this training done because you are that important. And maybe they'll get it in there.
But Dreambus botnet, really? I kind of like that. I'm gonna name the dance club that I'm gonna build one day called Dreambus botnet. You know what I mean? It's pretty cool. I wonder if that's a Microsoft product. All right, so I want to talk about two exploits this week that I think are really, really, really important. The first one, most everybody in the community probably has already heard about it. It's the Sonic Wall SSL VPN, the visual door that was posted by Mr. Infamous himself. And so make sure if you've got SSL VPN version 8 running that you're following SonicWall's instructions and you're upgrading that. So that remote code execution exploit is available on Exploit Database. It's the top choice for today, actually. So make sure you're patching that. And then the other one I'm talking about is jQuery 1.12. There's a denial of service out for jQuery. Now, jQuery is, application component inside of web applications typically. And I always see these web vulnerabilities coming up when I'm doing penetration testing for, older jQuery libraries. And I've been talking about this is going to be a next attack surface that's focused on because it is highly, highly overlooked. I see lots of organizations doing patchings on their systems, on Linux, on Windows. They're ignoring the components inside their applications that are actually delivering content and are also vulnerable. So no one's going to care about your Microsoft server when they can attack your weak jQuery that you've had since 2004 in your website. So make sure you're looking at those application component plugins and getting them upgraded to the most current versions because these exploits are out. Again, this jQuery DOS available. It's the number 10 hit today on ExploitDB. All right, turn it back over to you.
All right. Well, thank you both. Today's topic is really one that is a major problem. I know we talk about problems a lot here, but our goal, of course, with the podcast is to help equip organizational leaders and people within the cybersecurity and IT space to just get stronger at what they're doing. We just want to share the knowledge that we come across and what we learn along the way. In this particular case, it really comes down again to the people issue, right? Really, to be specific, building and keeping the team, because we've seen a lot of organizations that just have tremendous amount of turnover and a very, very hard time staffing positions that are empty that need to be filled. And the obvious reason for that is that there's a huge shortage of cybersecurity professionals out there, which is true. But it's also it's not also to say that we have to just like sit on our hands and do nothing, right? We have to do something. It means because of the shortage, we have to be more competitive as employers and more competitive in the way that we create our company culture and really build the environment for the cybersecurity and tech professionals in general to thrive. And so, Mike, you've written quite a bit on this, not only in the book, but blog posts, and you've spoke on it and at events and such. Do you want to kind of walk us through what you see as the major problems out there, kind of the different phases that people go throughout their career, what they might be looking for when? And I think that'll give a good basis on how people can better recruit and retain the professionals they have.
Yeah, sure. One of the things that I have discovered, through my own personal journey and being in IT for, ever, is that there are basically 4 phases of IT life. And that is newbie, beginner, mid-level, and senior or curmudgeon, or however you want to refer to the seniors. One of the things I like to say about the seniors is it's not that you can't teach an old IT person new tricks. Sometimes an IT person is happy with the tricks they know. So keep that in mind. That's also a quote from our book. Yeah, so just taking pieces from my life, I look at my new job, or my original job, my newbie job. I took whatever they gave me, right? Whatever was out there, and whatever I could get where I could get experience, right? I had just gotten my new MCSE back in the day when, it was the 90s, so it's a long time ago. It was a big deal, and I got a lot of travel in, and that was what it worked for me. And then I went to my beginner. I spent a bunch of time in the bleeding edge of technology, learning things, working 16, 18 hours a day during the .com phase. And then, mid-level hit where I started doing consulting. And senior level hit, and I didn't want to travel. I don't want to consult. I want to work in a job in an office or actually from home, be able to influence the direction of a company's IT process. So there's different phases. Now, I've kind of high-leveled those. There's a lot we could go into on that. The reason I call it the phases is because when you are looking for an IT security person, you have to design the job for those specific phases. A senior level person is not going to be willing to do the same thing a newbie person is, even though they more than meet the requirements for it. A mid-level person maybe, and senior level person may be interchangeable, but a mid-level person is not going to do what a newbie or a beginner is. Also, you can't fit a round peg into a square hole. I know that's an old adage, but in reality, you're not going to convert someone who is an awesome, Cisco engineer necessarily into a Office 365 engineer or a Linux resource. It's just not going to happen. So you have to understand that people have different skill sets, mindsets, and you have to tailor the jobs descriptions, especially when you're looking for a job, for that specific person. And you tailor the workload. So if you really just need someone to do the scut work internally, reading logs and that sort of thing, don't target a high-level person. Target low-level people. Give them the experience. Let them grow into the job and then expand it from there. So that's kind of my feelings on the different types of jobs, the different kinds of phases of IT life. I mean, it's not exhaustive and totally inclusive, but that's the big 4 buckets that I see. So that's what we're looking at. So really the key point here is tailor the job for the person that you're looking for and hire that person, because you hire someone with too much experience for a newbie level position, they're going to leave real quick because they're going to get bored. Anyway, Laura, Zach, comments?
Well, no, I mean, that's all very truthful. The other thing I think is that don't try to reward, because, Zach and we always try to emphasize that, it's the people that are really important. You can have all the cool technologies in the world without smart individuals that are capable. Those technologies aren't going to do anything for you. They're not going to manage themselves. They're not going to present you a pretty dashboard or any metrics of any kind. Right. It all takes very intelligent humans to do. And so what I like to think is that, there's a job out there for everybody to do that they want to do, that they have joy in doing, right? And so what I don't like to see, and so try to find that person, but don't try to reward people falsely with what I like to call like empty titles. Mm-hmm. Like you've got one IT guy, you're going to call him the vice president of information technology when they're doing the help desk. They're, right, installing Microsoft Office as well as configuring ACLs on the firewall. And then you want to expect them to do IT security too. So maybe you'll give them a CISO title or some form of a CTO title when they're really just a grunt. And those people, you're going to burn them out and they're going to go someplace else and find more meaningful work that's, not just title driven.
And it probably pays more.
Probably does. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that and I don't know. I mean, you have to spend money on good people. And unfortunately, there's no way around that. Especially if you want to keep them. And you don't have to pay a high dollar for people, but I think you need to staff accordingly, right? You can't have one person that you pay $140,000 to do everything. It's not sustainable. It'd be better to have, 3, $75,000 or $80,000 employees. So you have some sort of a backup plan if somebody leaves, and you have some sort of a, tribal knowledge of installed devices that is hopefully getting documented.
Yeah. And when you do that, you have to have the expectation you're going to lose at least one of them eventually, if not all of them, as they go through the position.
Always. Because just like in those phases you're talking about, everybody's looking to go from, into their next phase of life and of practice for their discipline. And if you're not giving them that capability at their place of work, they will go find it. Yeah. Because they're going to try to grow as a professional, right? Especially IT security professionals. You can't, even if you go to a school for an undergraduate in this, it's constant learning. I mean, you're learning new stuff every day. And if you're working in an organization that won't let you do the coolest new stuff you need to, you're going to go find it someplace else.
Well, exactly. I mean, you look at your security stack or your IT stack, and if you're 5 years behind the times or 3 years behind the times, you're killing the person's resume, which is killing their longevity. So you need to keep up with your technology, and that's keep them up, keep them trained. And keep in mind too that compensation is important, but most technical people were technical before they were paid to do it, right? I mean, Laura, when you started fooling around with computers when you were 10 or younger?
Yeah. So, I mean, you're right. I mean, nerds are going to be nerds, right? Technicians are going to be technicians. And, here's the thing is that it doesn't cost a lot of money to give your security folks a lab where they can vet software, right? I mean, because, let's talk about every VAR out there is trying to sell you something new, demo it, right? Throw it in the lab and run a demo of it, demo the product for, 2-3 weeks. See if anything, gives you an opportunity to play with stuff. gives your staff, well, really your staff an opportunity to play with stuff, right? And then it'll out of it, you'll have new technologies and capabilities you might not have known about before by letting them have this lab, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, good point. I think that's leaps and bounds above a foosball table and a keg of beer in the office. Even
I think the keg of beer should be there, but I mean that's cliche. You're right. Everybody wants to put in and I love table tennis. I love playing pool, but I would rather have a lab, chassis in the IT security room, so that I could do stuff on rather than go play foosball. You know what I mean?
I think that's an excellent point. And a differentiator. If you can structure your organization in a way that allows even a specified amount of time, and all the big Silicon Valley companies do this, but for those who don't out there, you can structure your organization in a way that segments off a specified amount of time for your staff, especially your technical staff, to mess around in a lab environment or work on new projects or explore new skill sets, all those types of things. I think that's going to help tremendously in your retention, because they're, I hate to say it, but they're generally not married to the company that they're working for. They can be poached by the highest bidder, somebody that gives them that opportunity to grow and develop in their career. And so, especially in those early phases, I mean, going back to your point, Mike, kind of the newbie and beginner phase, if you're thinking from the shoes of the person that you want to hire, what do they want? They want opportunity to excel, grow in their career, play around with new things, learn new skill sets, all of that, and be in kind of a, energizing environment, right? As they go further into their career, those needs are going to change, right? You're going to get into more stability. They're going to have things like families to think about, and vacation time and all of that. So consider instead of just putting a blanket ad out for, hey, I need this person. Think about what really appeals to the person in that phase of their career. Where are they going to be, and how can you tailor the environment?
Exactly. And keep in mind too is that the environment, the political atmosphere is key. Most IT people, I would say 99.9%, can't stand politics. Don't want any part of it. Don't want anything to do with it. Don't want to hear about your office intrigue. Couldn't care less. And you immerse your people in that, you're going to lose them. And if you have, good pay in a bad environment may keep them around for a while. Not good pay or okay pay in a bad environment, you're losing resources fast. The environment that you work in. Now, I'm not saying, like when I got in the .com era, I mean, we had stocked fridge and power beers and, pizza on demand and, margarita machine that was turned on at 4:00 every day. He's played pool with the CEO and whip his butt, that kind of thing. But, it's evolved. The industry's evolved since then, but you still have to create a good environment that people want to work in, and people will take a lower paycheck to work in a good environment. And I think, we've seen that in a lot of places. So,
and what are your thoughts on when people are really looking for, let's take the scenario of a company that's looking to bring in maybe a senior security professional for the first time, right? Maybe they have an IT team, but no security professionals in-house. What would your advice be to them as far as what is that senior person, a person that's going to run the show for them from a security perspective? What are they expecting? What are they going to need in order to take that position?
Well, they're going to need some autonomy. They're going to need respect for what they've accomplished through their career, right? And they don't need to be second guessed by someone who's seen the latest and greatest fad. They are a solid IT professional. So the first thing is autonomy. The second one is let them build some of their team. They're going to want to have their people in place. So if you've got holdovers or people that they don't get along with, you need to allow them to build their team properly. And definitely a vote for sure. I mean, not dictatorial control, but definitely a vote in the IT or the direction of the company from a security perspective or an IT perspective. And there needs to be an understanding for that person of what the business's goals are and what the security goals are. And there needs to be an equal balance of the security person's input. It can't just be steamrolled by the business. You have to realize that security person, especially at the senior level, has valuable experience, is there to protect you, not to hurt you, not to kill sales, but is there to protect the company to ensure its longevity. And really what it comes down to a lot of, is respect. I have a soapbox moment that I call out in the book, and it comes from actual experience where, security SMEs are talking about things and they're being shouted down or argued with by PMs or, VPs or directors or managers who have no idea what they're talking about. And then they're not backed up by their management. That can't happen. You're going to lose that resource immediately, and they're going to find another place to go in a heartbeat. Really, it's autonomy and respect, I think, are the top two. And you have to have them be able to have that level of respect from other people outside the IT organization. So,
well said. Another thing I've seen too is just a commonality among those people either stepping into a security role for their organization and taking over that responsibility, or coming in from the outside and doing it, is they're very much vision driven as well. They want to see, they have something in mind for the organization. They have things they want to do and accomplish. And I think understanding what that is for that individual and reinforcing that, working with that, bringing it up on a regular basis can certainly help, right? Because they see themselves as maybe going to eventually gain maybe a CISO title or something like that, and building out that security team with them, like you mentioned, Mike. That's a great thing, and it's starts with the decision that if you're going to hire somebody, you're going to trust them and you're going to get out of their way a bit and let them do their work, but then also support that bigger picture that they have in mind. And try to reinforce it and help turn that into reality. And I think that can go a long way. And I think that regardless of the level of person you're looking for, they all have a picture in their minds, whether they articulate it or not. They have a picture in their minds of kind of what they're looking for out of the job, what that ideal work environment looks like to them, and what they want out of it. And so if you can kind of get down to the root of that, make sure that that's in alignment with what the company has in mind and needs, and then if so, it could be a great fit. As long as you're serious about supporting them, not just because the opposite, of course, is people hire. They hire a security professional almost to check the block, and then they say, okay, well, now that you're here, this is how it's going to be, and this is what you need to do, and that's when they move on right away. So.
Yeah, you're going to lose that resource almost immediately.
This is a fascinating topic. I think we're going to have quite a few more episodes on this in the future, just various aspects. We'll dive into more detail, have some guests on the show and such, talking about this very part, because it is so critical. But for now, a recap: put yourself in the shoes of the person that you're trying to hire. Understand what that expertise is that you need. Get some outside support. If you don't understand what you need, get a consultant, get somebody in there to help you paint that picture, have some clarity, get it documented. But then put yourself in the shoes. What level of their career path is this person in that you need? Are they entry level? Are they brand new, right out of school, right out of certifications, or are they senior? And in which case, what's going to be important to them at that phase in their life? Think through that, write it down, and make sure that you treat this process carefully. Don't just kind of stick it through the usual HR protocols, because it's just not going to be as effective. Take a personal interest in it for those of you who are organizational leaders, and really show interest in the people that you're trying to bring on board, because it is a competitive hiring market out there. And that's just what has to be done in this day and age to make it work. But in doing so, you'll have an asset that will pay large dividends over time, and it will cost you a lot less over time, as opposed to having turnover, which of course it's incredibly expensive. So any final thoughts, comments, smart remarks before we jump off here today?
Well, I got a smart remark.
Really, you?
No,
I had to work really hard for it, but back to the trust your people. When my pool guy comes here, I'm not out there, scrutinizing every little thing he does. All I care about is that the pool stays nice and I can swim in it when I want to. So I trust him. Yeah. I don't care what methods he uses. They work for him. They work for all of us. So, trust your people.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I would say is, and I agree with that too, Laurel, but train them. allow them to get their CPE. It's mandatory. CPE is mandatory to maintain those certs that you required them to get their job for. If they need a half day to go to an ISACA meeting or ISC Squared meeting or something of that nature, let them have the half day. They need the time. They need to get the CPEs and support it. Pay for them to get a training class. It's not that big of a deal. Give them the time, keep them trained, and yeah, you may be promoting or be contributing to them leaving you and going someplace more expensive. However, while they're there, you're showing you care about them, you care about their career, and that you are going to go ahead and support them and ensure the company is staying ahead of the curve.
Excellent point. And to add to that, guess where the best place is to find additional team members, right? It's through the ones that you already have and trust. And they're going to meet people and expand their network by going to these events, going to these meetings. Even if they are virtual, they're still going to expand their own network of tech professionals, and they'll be able to help you grow your team better than just putting an ad out for a certain resource. So all good stuff. Well, thank you all for listening. Reach out with any questions, comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Rate us on your favorite podcast platform, and love to get your feedback. We're always working to improve. So please just take a moment to do that, and we will chat with you again next week. Have a great day.
Take care.
Pick up your copy of the Cyber Rants book on Amazon today. And if you're looking to take your cybersecurity program to the next level, visit us online at www.silentsector.com. Join us next time for another edition of the Cyber Rants podcast.